Welcome to another MECUM Auctions on the K-Train 2787 channel, and this one is at Kissimmee Summer Classic. Last couple years of this auction has been bouncing between Kissimmee and Orlando. This year I think they have more cars than last year, so they had to move it back to Kissimmee, but it's well worth it. So hopefully the thunderstorms today don't damper the experience, but we'll see what happens. To start things off, Dodge brought out a couple new cars. There's a new Hornet, which I think is just the base Hornet. There's a Scat Pack Charger and a Durango. Now, of course, this is the final year of the Chargers, especially gas-powered Chargers. So there is a collection of Dodges that are supposed to be here at this auction. They're like the Farewell Tour Chargers and Challengers, so we'll check that out later. So this is one of the cars. And now I'm going to check this Hornet out. Now this one is a Hornet, brand new Hornet GT, which is kind of the mid-range. They also have these in an RT. You can also get the black top package, which has the black wheels and the black badging, and I think a all black interior, which I think is standard on these cars, but I'm not positive. But I think the fabric is different from a standard version. But this is what the future is becoming, unfortunately. But they're not too bad. I mean, from what I saw from the pictures and seeing one in real life now, they look a little bit bigger than what I thought they were. You can see the stylized taillights. They look very similar to like a Durango or a Charger. You can tell right next to it. They look very similar. The styling's very deprived from one another. The design carries over from one another to keep it familiar to the Dodge family, but it also has a Mazda vibe to it as well. It kind of looks like a CX-5 almost. Let's move on to older stuff. That's what y'all are here for. Here's something unusual I've never seen before. This is an Auto Bianchi by Chonky, I think it's what it's called, or something like that. Sorry if I know I butchered that name, but it's very small. If you can compare it to this Pontiac G6 over here, this is actually way smaller. It's about the size of an original Mini Cooper, but the interior looks really nice. I don't know if it comes this way or they upgrade the interior, but this restoration is very well done. I do like the trim here on the sides. It's very nice detail. Instead of having a plain painted area, they put some detail into it from the factory. It is unlocked. See, just the basic interior as you can get, but with some style to it. Very cool. Here's some of the info on it. MECUM has different letters for different days. A U means usually Sunday for MECUM. An S is usually Saturday. I think an F is for Friday. And T is for Thursday. Here's something way different I never thought I would see. This is a 2022 Jeep Wrangler that is designed to look like Charles Leclerc's Formula 1 Ferrari race car. As you can tell, it even has the halo bar in the center of the windscreen here. Has all the correct sponsors, even the wheels for the curve system. And these are plastic. But if of course Ferrari and Jeep are owned by the same company, Stellantis. This was actually wrapped for the Miami Grand Prix last year, which was the inaugural one which I attended. And of course 75 years of Ferrari, which they celebrated in 2022. It has the matte finish just like the race car, not glossy like in previous years. Here's a nice replica of Old Reliable, which was driven by the legendary NHRA driver Bill Grumpy Jenkins, which eventually became known for his motors and his partnership with GM through the years. He also became a car owner later in life. This was a replica of The car that set the NHRA record of 13.2 seconds at 106 miles an hour back in 1961, which would pretty much be like a 9-second car today. Back in the day, like 13 seconds, especially in the early 60s, is something to definitely not frown upon. I mean, you can actually buy like a Scat Pack or even an RT Charger, can actually go 13s from the factory. And here is 1961, 13 seconds from a NHRA drag car. Kind of put things in perspective through the years. But of course, this is not the actual one, this is the replica. But just to give you an idea, I'm sure the original car was not full interior. I'm sure it was more stripped out for weight savings, but I imagine it had a 409 in it, being 61. Now this is pretty ironic that you see both these cars together, because without one you would not have the other. Of course, that's not a real Shelby Cobra, that would not be outside. And of course you have a first generation Dodge Viper. Now Carroll Shelby was involved with both these cars, and in order to build the Viper he took cues from the Cobra. If you look, of course you have the side pipes, which in later years was eliminated because people were complaining about burning their ankles. I mean, just the styling cues. 2-seat sports car. It's just a more modern version of the Cobra in many ways, and more just a little more practical, but it's still a 2-seater sports car. But of course, these first generation Vipers did not have side windows. They had plastic windows that would go in this area, and of course this top, the fold-away top, convertible top, which in later years you got a hard top with roll-up windows. I do remember these when these came out. I was actually in a dealership with my parents while we were buying a Plymouth Acclaim, and one of these was on the floor of the dealership in the showroom. I actually got to sit in it, and I think I have a picture of, I think my mom or dad took a picture of me sitting in the Dodge Viper first year when they came out. Dodge Vipers always have a special place in my heart, but it's a shame they don't make them anymore. Here's something you don't see every day. This is a 67 Dodge Coronet 500. Of course, the 500 was a top trim package, and this is a 318 automatic car, but something you don't see on a lot of these Coronets, this is a factory AC car. Of course, with a black vinyl interior column, it has the center console. Being a 500, you probably would have that being the top option package. But I love this burgundy paint, the black vinyl top, and of course, tie everything together, you had the red line tires. Very well done restoration. It does look an older restoration. The paint's kind of showing some wear, but it looks a lot better on video than it does in real life. But it looks, this would be a nice driver to take to a show. 67 Dodge Coronet 500. Now you don't see a lot of these at auctions, especially a MECUM auction, but a Mustang II. This is a 1978 Mustang II. Even though it has a snake on it, this is not a Cobra version. This has a 2.6 liter V6 in it with a manual transmission. Now, of course, Mustang II is probably the least loved Mustang besides the Mach-E, but I mean, these are starting to come around. These kind of the gap between the first generation Mustangs and the Fox Body. I think the Fox Body came out in '79, if I'm not mistaken, but these are starting to gather a pretty good fan base. I mean, if you want a classic Mustang on a budget and you don't want like the first generation or a Fox Body, Mustang 2s, I mean, people steal the front ends and put them on their hot rods. I mean, especially if you could find a Cobra version of these cars, which those are starting to get a, they're not crazy through the roof yet, but I mean, eventually they probably will. Once all the good Cobras and Shelby cars are out of everybody's budget. I mean, these are decent cars. They're not great, but for what you had to deal with the time during the energy crisis in the late 70s and the gas prices, this is what you had to deal with. This was your Mustang. I do see these being eventually high dollar cars, not like $100,000 or anything like that, but I mean, collectability wise, I do see these gaining value over the years. So don't sleep on these, especially the Cobra versions. And they also make good drag cars as well. Really cool car right here. This is a 1974 Di Tommaso Pantera. These were sold at Lincoln and Mercury dealers back in the mid 70s and early 70s. And of course, these are powered by this is a mid-engine 351 Cleveland, which I think all of them had. 351 Cleveland was more of the performance version compared to the Windsor, which was not as strongly built as the Cleveland. My father actually test drove one of these cars in the mid-70s at a Lincoln Mercury dealership while he was getting his Ford Granada service, and the guy let him test drive the car. Back then it was, you could trust people more, and they'll let you test drive cars right at the showroom without even putting like a credit application down or putting money on the car. So it's pretty much Italian designed with American muscle behind it. These are also Pantera, and of course the band Pantera was named after these cars. Vinnie Paul, who originally became the drummer in the band, saw one of these cars in a magazine and told his brother about it. He says, hey, I found a name for a band. It's after a cool car. It's called the Pantera. And so from there on, it became history. So that's how the band Pantera got their name. Here's one of my all-time favorite Buick Riviera body styles, 1972 boat tail. And this car actually has 52,000 original miles on it. Totally original, non-restored. I mean, the interior just looks brand new with the leather seats. Look at this, 52,000 original miles on it. But look at, I love the paint color on this Buick. Of course, the famous boat tail Y style, very characteristic of the split window Corvettes. I believe it was the same designer. This was a northern car. This actually has a big block 455 in it, but I'm sure it was very well garage kept most of its life, being up north through the winter months. Here it is, the beast itself, 2018 Dodge Demon, 808 horsepower on pump gas, and converted you can get 840 or higher on race gas. I think this is octane red as the color on it. The original owner did opt for the $2 fee of the passenger seat and the back seat as well. I'm sure the Demon crate is probably at the MECUM offices, but fully loaded up Demon. These are pretty much collector cars when they came out in 2018. Knowing how special these cars were, being as quick as they are on the drag strip, you had to have a roll cage, which they did not equip with these from the factory. Now the new Demons, the 170s, which came out this year, does have a factory optional roll cage, which you can get from SRT. But this was the original Demon, came out only in 2018. And these cars are just going to go up through the years. And you don't see them much on the road, and you don't see them as much as you did when they first came out. So people are just buying these cars and storing them, putting them in their collection, just sitting on them because they know it's going to gain value over the years. But it's always a treat when you see one. Of course, the supercharged 6.2 liter Hemi. Of course, to tell the Demon from a normal Hellcat, you have the Demon here on the supercharger, and also just like you have it right. You can barely see it, but would have it right there on the intake as well. Now these are usually blocked off on the RTs, but they are open, I think, on the Scats and on the Hellcats, and of course the Demons. If you think about it, these inlets are a homage to the Ram Chargers, which use inlets like this on the high beam headlights they took the high beam headlights out and put the air intakes where the headlight buckets were. So this is an homage to the Ram Chargers back in the 1960s. But of course it's a modern take with the halo headlight on it, the halo ring, and the Demon, either Hellcat or Demon insignia right here on the light. Alright, this is like the perfect Buick Riviera in my opinion. Black, triple black. This is how I would have ordered a Buick Riviera if I was buying a Buick Riviera back in 1960, in the mid 60s. Gorgeous black interior with the wood center console. This paint is like immaculate. Of course black shows all the imperfections, but this is done perfect to the T. And of course, these had the clamshell headlights which open like this, and the headlights are behind here. Alright, I stand correct. This is a original 1963 Buick Riviera. All original, non-restored, very low mileage car. If I read that odometer right, I couldn't see the far left number. This is a low mileage car from a low mileage collection. Most of this whole row is low mileage collection. One guy's collection of low mileage cars. So this is probably the gem of the collection right here as far as I'm concerned. And this does have the 425, not the 455 in it. Here's something that's truly unique. 1960 Oldsmobile Toronado. These are like the first mass-produced GM front-wheel drive cars. You had this, and you also had the Eldorado, which was the same platform. And these front-wheel drive drivetrains were actually chain-driven, in which being front-wheel drive, you had the advantages of having a flat floor. There was no transmission humps whatsoever. It had a total flat floor on the Toronado and the Eldorado versions. And this car only has 13,000 original miles and only had one owner since new. And it's totally original, non-restored. And of course, a lot of these cars had these wheels on it. Cadillac and the Oldsmobile. I think they had a weird bolt pattern as well, so you really couldn't put custom wheels on these cars. Let me check the engine here. Here's the engine. Does have factory AC as well. Here it is. It's like one of my ultimate dream cars. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454, black with the white rally stripes. This is like the car of the auction for me right now. Even though it's not a real LS6 Chevelle, it has all the components of a LS6 Chevelle. Ever since I saw the movie Dazed and Confused, this is what Matthew McConaughey drove in the movie. This is a 4-speed car as well. So it is the LS6 Tribute Chevelle. These are pretty much the ultimate. Besides like maybe Hemi cars, this is pretty much the ultimate muscle car back in the heyday of the muscle car days as far as I'm concerned. Well, this was the peak of GM. If you want like the top of the line muscle car in 1970, as far as GM goes, this was it. And you can see there is the 4-speed. I don't know if it's an M22 Rock Crusher, but it is a 4-speed car. It is unlocked here. And there it is, your 454 big block Chevy. Of course, due to insurance reasons, they were rated at 450, but I'm sure if you actually put it on a dyno, it'd be close to 500 or maybe more. Just to get around the insurance, cracking down on muscle cars back in the day, they had to like fake spec the horsepower and fake spec the engine horsepower just to keep the insurance down. As you can see, they put some aftermarket headers on it. And as you can see, there is the vacuum motor for your cowl induction hood. So once you put your foot in it, once you go floor it, this panel will pop up and it'll suck the air right into the carburetor to give you extra horsepower, more extra airflow into the motor, giving you more power. Of course, it's not a MECUM auction without the ultimate car from the 80s, 1982 DeLorean. Of course, less than 3,000 miles, and this is one of the cars that were built prior to the John DeLorean buyout in 1982, and this was one of the 2,000 cars built before the buyout. And of course, with these DeLoreans, of course, you have the famous gull-wing doors. This is your whole window opening right here. You could not go through a modern day drive-through. Hopefully you got something small and not like a large Coke or something in here. So you actually have to open the gull-wing doors if you had to take this through like a drive-through or anything you needed to come through the window. Subaru had a car like this that was the exact same window. I forget the name of those right now, but Subaru had a car very similar to this. Same window shape. And of course, I think the 2.8 liter, these are actually like partially Renault based engines and weren't very reliable. But a lot of people, of course, nowadays swap LSs into them and do a bunch of crazy stuff to make them more reliable and more powerful. And of course, with DeLoreans here in Orlando, there is an actual DeLorean dealership which they do service and restore DeLoreans. And I think they restored H. Frehley's DeLorean, I think in Texas. Somebody bought all the original tooling and everything, all the extra body pieces, and formed their own. They're actually making DeLoreans brand new again from Ireland. Like, bought from Ireland, moved to Texas, and now they're making new ones again. They're actually building a new DeLorean, which was featured in the new Fast and Furious movie as well, as a hybrid, which Charlize Theron drives. Here's an early Chrysler letter car, 1956 Chrysler 300B. Has a 354 firepower in it. One of 1,102 built in 1956. I don't see a lot of these in red. You usually see these in white. And especially, these have a huge pedigree in early NASCAR. With the Carl Keycaper team, with the Mercury Outboards motors as their sponsorship. With drivers like Tim Flock and Buck Baker, was like the first NASCAR super team, like you consider like Rick Hendrick and Penske. They had like 4 cars that would show up painted white with the red lettering on it and just dominate NASCAR races in the early 50s before even like teams with multiple cars was even a thing in NASCAR. So this was like an early high performance, you might consider an early muscle car. But the interior is done really well. The tan leather interior, even updated, put AC in it. Very well done, restored 56 Chrysler 300B. Here's that beautiful 1957 Chevy 3100 step side. Very nice with the cream and orange two-tone. But instead of using like an LS motor or a small block Chevy, they actually put a Mercedes drivetrain in it from a newer Mercedes SUV. This whole thing has a Mercedes drivetrain. But it didn't stop there. The interior is also Mercedes. They swapped over the whole dash, console, custom seats, all to fit that Mercedes drivetrain. I'm sure they need the computers and everything, so they just swapped over the whole dash to make the conversion a lot easier. But a complete Mercedes conversion on this 57 Chevrolet 3100 pickup. So pretty much a different way of doing a resto mod. Here you go, this is my generation of Batmobile. The Michael Keaton movies, Batman Returns. It's not the best replica I've seen of that Batmobile, but it's pretty decent. It has a sliding canopy like it does in the movie. Of course, it has the cutouts for the machine guns, but these don't work. They're just there for looks. Same with the turbine engine. It's like really not functional, just meant to be driven. Unlike the Casey Puch replica, which was actually like built to be just like the movie car. But this is just built for show and take pictures with. Nothing really functional about it. Let me show you a little more detail. Of course, it has a replica nose cone for the turbine inlet. This is where the machine guns would be at. Of course, the sliding canopy. Same as bat wings, and there's your turbine outlet. If it did actually have a turbine, but decently detailed. It's a little higher than it should be. I know in the movie it's a little bit, the stance was a little bit lower, but what you want, it's a replica, it's not exact. I've never seen one of these before. It's a 1979 Chevrolet Impala Condoro SS. Now, GM went front wheel drive in the US in the 70s, and we kind of lost out on the muscle car game where the rest of the world was still in it. Same with Brazil and South America, Australia. They were still building muscle cars way into the 80s, rear wheel drive V8s. And this was part of that. This is a 1979 version. They also made 4 doors of these, coupes. And this is a Super Sport edition with a vinyl top, with the brown, it was a tan interior. This was imported from Brazil back in 2002. I think they use these as the Australian market as well as a Holden, but I'm not positive. But it does look familiar to the Australian version. Usually with these cars you see some similarities between the US component, if there is any. But to me, I am getting some like Chevelle vibes right here with the grille, the headlight, and the side markers. But it's pretty cool. I mean, a GM muscle car I've never seen before, especially late 70s. I like it. Fender here, being from Brazil, they're using the CCs instead of cubic inches. It's a very different form of GM I've never seen. It is unlocked. See, it has a 4-speed on it. Very 1970s interior, but well kept. Not even sure if this is even restored or it's just original, because I don't even know if they make parts for these or not. So to get the full title of the car, you know it says GMC, a lot of the car is badged Chevrolet. Or it could be Chevrolet was not in Brazil at the time. They used the GMC nameplate just like they used to in Australia. Chevrolet was not in Australia until recently. Before then, it was just badged as a Holden. So I think this is the same case for this, but I'm not positive. Here's something truly unique. This is a very George Barris style car, even though George Barris didn't build the car. He actually named the car Camino Royale, which is actually a 57 Chevrolet, which I'm assuming started life as a Nomad. They cut the back end off and made it into a El Camino. As you can tell, there was a bike back here at one time. You can see in the pictures. The bike's long gone, but they actually cut the roof off, made it El Camino, extended the back end, put this Continental type extender on it. Of course, George Barris characteristics like the double taillights, like Cadillacs, elongated tailpipes, even though it does have the fake lake pipes on the side. Very George Barris-esque build. As you can see, George Barris with the car. Some of the history with it. This is a manual transmission car as well. Very vintage hot rodder styling from the 1960s. Oh yeah. Now this is a rare Mopar muscle car right here. This is the factory this is all original, well, restored, but this is the factory 1969 Plymouth Roadrunner Hemi, factory 4-speed. It has a Super Track Pack Dana 60 on it. Restored back in 2020, but 69 Hemi Roadrunner. Only one of 194 produced. I don't know if you can see it. There's your factory 4-speed. B5 blue exterior color, which is probably one of my all-time favorite Mopar colors, new and old. Is what the original color would have looked like. Done really well. Has the center caps. And of course, you got the Dana 60 up underneath. There's more better shot of the interior. All black interior. Very nice example of almost peak Plymouth muscle car era. Now, being the final year of the Dodge Charger and Challenger, they're going to be special editions. Well, this is one of those special editions. This is a 1 of 300 King Daytona wide body SRT Hellcat Dodge Chargers with the Go Man Go paint, with the black interior. This has everything that the Hellcat has, like line log, the chiller for the supercharger. Still has plastic on everything as it should, directly right from the dealer, with a special King Daytona striping on it. Same striping you see on the Daytona, but of course it has a special King Daytona insignia on it. Of course it has a normal spoiler on the back. I do like the orange with the black stripe, but I guess with the sunroof, the Daytonas, you usually get these black with the same stripe pack, like the same vinyl that you have on the roof, but because it has a sunroof, I guess you don't get the vinyl package on the roof. And of course on the Daytonas, you also would get like a Hemi stripe on the front here, but I'm not sure you get that with the Hellcat. Nice last hurrah for the Dodge Charger, unfortunately. Gas powered anyway. Now, I never knew they made a super sport wagon of any kind, but apparently in 1973, for 1 year only, Chevrolet made for their mid-size line for 1 year only. And here it is. This only has 67,000 original miles. It has some wear here and there, but not very much. The big goes on price was $42,000, and the interior looks pretty good. But I've never seen one. I've seen plenty of these wagons, but not a super sport version. I don't know if these had the optional, I don't know if this folds up to the reverse back seat or not, or just has a storage compartment underneath. But this is, who knows if you ever see another one. Super sport wagon. This does have a big block as well. This has the 454 big block, 245 horsepower back in 1973. Of course, the gas short because of the infra. Yeah, there you go. There's your big factory numbers matching big block for this wagon with factory AC as well. So if you're looking for a one-off wagon that nobody else has, 73 Malibu station wagon, big block 454, take the kids to the cruise night, pile your buddies, and go have some fun with this extraordinary rare car from GM. Here's a very nice example of a early Corvette. This is a 1954 Chevrolet Corvette. First year you could actually have a color other than white as the exterior color. And of course, early back then you didn't have a V8, you had the straight 6, the blue flame 6 at 235. The V8 didn't come until 1955. And of course, 1956, they changed the whole body style altogether, but was still considered the first generation Corvette. But I think this is the rarest color you could get on a first, second year, or third year Corvette was black. Of course, the most common was white. I think the second most common was red. But of course, a lot of your interior color was red, but you could get a white interior with a blue car, with a blue exterior color for 1954 and 55. But here's your blue flame 6. I mean, these cars, they didn't really sell that well until the V8 was added. And they almost stuck doing production until they put the V8 motor in them as well. So I always like these cars, first couple of years of the first generation C1 Corvettes. Of course, the later years they added the headlight covers to them. I don't think 53 had these, but 54, 55 did have it as an option. I could be wrong. I know Corvette people are gonna correct me in the comments, but I think that was the option. Of course, black shows everything, but this is very well done. I don't really see a lot of imperfections in the paint. And of course, being a fiberglass car, you're going to show the negative sides of it as well with the cracks and everything, but I don't see anything on this thing. I'm sure this has a coating on it, on the fiberglass when they restored it, but it looks straight to me. A very nice example of a 54 Corvette convertible. Now, of course, this is probably the most famous Batmobile of all time from the Adam West TV series from the 1960s. Now, this is not from the TV series, but this is a replica. But this is probably the best handling replica because its base is actually on a Corvette chassis with a Corvette drivetrain, LS3 powered. Same you get in a new Corvette or a Camaro. Of course, with the Batman valve covers. Now it has all the bells and whistles that the TV series had in it, or at least mimics, including the parachutes. Of course, the original Batmobile was actually the Lincoln Futura concept car, which these kits are based off of fiberglass kits, which these fiberglass kits are based off of. So, of course, you have the exhaust out the back, just like the TV series. Of course, you have your wheels with the Batman center caps. You get your closer look on the interior here. And of course, there's the Bat phone. It has a racing harness on it. There's all your roaming sonar, your roaming, your scope, the cut off steering wheel. Very cool. Here's something that was well executed but was never produced. 1970 Plymouth Superbird convertible. Now, this is actually a Plymouth satellite This is actually a 1970 Plymouth Satellite with the Superbird front nose cone and rear wing added. This is the factory 318 car. Now, of course, if this was a Superbird, this would either be a 440 most likely, or the more rare Hemi. But whoever did the add-ons in this did this really good. All the decals are correct. The wing is right. I don't know if this is a reproduction wing or a OEM wing. But of course, column shift, nice black vinyl interior, the correct fender vents. Here's some muscle car history for you. The first year of the Trans Am was actually 1969, and here's what they mostly look like: the white with the blue stripes. Now, Trans Am Day was actually named after the SCCA Racing Series, which mostly used muscle cars as the car of choice. This is one of the rarest versions of the Trans Am because 69 they didn't really make a lot of them. And of course, the following year, 1970, they completely changed the whole body style. Same blue interior with the white exterior paint and the blue stripe on the hood. And I'm pretty sure these are a packaged lot. These actually go together in the same lot. And this one only has 1,600 original miles on it. I'm only seeing a couple of these, especially at MECUM auctions, but this is a 1980 Chevrolet C10 Brazilian edition. Now in South America, they actually made totally different C10 trucks compared to the US. Same with the Suburbans. If you can see the characteristics, it's kind of a blend between the 60 and 66, 60 to 66 and 67 to 72 C10 trucks. Remember 1980, we had the square bodies. We're like deep into the square body years by then in the US, but this is what they're rolling in 1980 in Brazil. You can see the sloped hood, the curved blinds, and it has the more modern steering wheel to 1980, but of course our steering wheels are a little bit different. And this is I think it's a 4-speed on the floor. More rounded body lines to the back, kind of more characteristics to the 60 to 66 C10s, especially with the taillights. Early 60s taillights for the C10s. Of course, you got the wood bed with the spare tire. It's just totally weird that it's like almost a C10 from another planet, and how different this is, even though it's a 1980 C10. Of course, it's bare essentials. Same with the dash. The dash is very early 60s as well. Same with the glove box door. I can't see the gauges, but it's very similar to an early 60s C10. So very cool. 1980 Brazilian Chevrolet C10. This is probably the last car of the day I'll probably preview for you guys. This is a 1987 Monte Carlo Super Sport. Last year of the G-Body Super Sport Monte Carlos, but this is not an ordinary G-Body Monte Carlo. This is actually an Aero Coupe. This was homologated by NASCAR to help them on the super speedways, much like the Superbirds and Daytonas for the Chrysler company. Now, the original ones obviously are the ones that had the straight back window and flat trunk lid. But on the super speedways, they were really loose and hard to handle, so they took design cues from the Camaro, which had a sloped rear back window, a sloped glass rear window, and it actually helped with stability on the high bank corners. And of course, you had the spoiler as well, which is very NASCAR inspired. But this car actually has 67,000 original miles on it. It's actually, this paint is actually original paint, and the stripes are original as well. It actually has a gray interior with the T-tops. Very clean Monte Carlo. So a very nice example of a G-body Monte Carlo SS. It also has a 305 automatic transmission. Now let's end this video with some Dodge thrill rides.